Hi, I'm Cassius Rankin with ECTV, and today I am joined by Robin Wallace and Piper Snowber. How are both of you doing today?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course. So, jumping straight into it, would both of you mind starting with just a short introduction?
Sure. My name is Robin. I serve on the board of Studio Channel Islands Art Center, and I am Piper's mom.
Hi, I'm Piper. I am currently a college student at School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I study fibers and textiles. I grew up in Camarillo, and yeah.
Robin, your exhibit, Transformed, utilizes pieces found from the wreckage of the Camarillo mountain fires. What inspired you to tell the stories of those who have been affected by the fires in this way?
I mean, it was truly just being at the burn site, where we were called to, revisit the site to kind of look through what was left, and really, like, the task was, to see what could be salvaged, before, out of the debris, and before it was taken away, right? And so that process was really difficult because nothing was salvageable as it was originally intended to be. Like, oh, here's this toaster, yeah, that's gonna work great. No, like, there isn't a toaster anymore, there's this piece of metal. So, it really begged the question, so what is it now, And, it's never going to function the way it did before. So, let's look at, let's accept what this is now, currently. And, it was this moment where I started looking at everything differently. It's it's not about what we're going to throw away, but really what is that shape? And is it something that that you can touch and it's still what does it feel like? Does it fall apart? Like the glass in many cases was just a little puddle, but you would touch it and it would fall apart, So it's looks like there's some things that have survived, but but only for a moment. Still, they're so fragile, right? And then there are other things that had been twisted beyond recognition. For example, the turning point piece for me was the piano, which my husband found, and it was, typically a piano has this big, heavy steel piece called the harp, which is flat, that all the wires are attached to, and this thing, it looked like a fortune cookie, and it was 700 pounds. I couldn't move it, but I was thinking, people need to see this. This is really beautiful. And so it was really that idea that all of this stuff is really what we call it. We ascribe the meaning. We decide that this piece of wood is going to be a beam for a house. We decide that it's now trash. We decide, how we're going to use it in our lives, right? And so I thought that whole movement of thinking from it's trash to oh no, this is something that's been disconnected from its former use, and now is this beautiful piece of metal, was really redemptive. It felt oh, I have something in common with this object. It survived and it will always be changed, and I survived and I will always be changed. And how that manifests in all of us really depends on what was in there from the beginning, And so that's part of the interest in all these materials being kind of reduced back to their elements and literally shaped by this experience. So in that way, it was inspiring because I wanted to share that experience with other people. I wanted other people to recognize that there was strength in this, and that they deserve to see it that way.
It's also really taught me how valuable this place is to me and how much it makes me also kind of who I am. And I think realizing that that there's these kind of concrete parts of myself or things that I really care about in the world that are like specific to this place, to Ventura County, like, and that I can't be in touch with that there in a sense, and like other people around me don't see the world in the same way, I guess. I think like that really kind of made me go deeper into like what is my own connection to this place, and you know, yeah, like what have I learned from it, and yeah, just it's really become like a center point kind of, I'd say, of my work in a way, yeah.
Also, as kind of a question for both of you, speaking on how your kind of community with Camarillo and your relationship with it has again sort of pushed you in this kind of direction. For both of you, how would you say that your community, especially specific to this place, has kind of shaped your art and the way that you create?
I mean, like sort of the cruel irony of the house burning to the ground in this climate disaster is just that it was embedded in us from, you know, from the very beginning, the importance of living in harmony with the land and with everything that was surrounding us there. And so to have that kind of like the violence of the fire, you know, sort of attack and destroy this place that was so peaceful and that was so had so much reverence for the environment, was felt like a, I don't know, like just yeah, like I said, just like a cruel irony, because it so didn't belong there. That rage and that, you know, that yeah, that like, and I think that that's part of what I wanted people to see too in these objects, is that there's nothing that you can do really to, like, there's nothing that we could have done to prevent what happened. Like it has a force of its own, and nothing that we have engineered so far can protect us from that. And I think we have this like false idea of safety that we can just, you know, if we just do the right things and build the right structure and whatever, it's going to be fine. And I want people to see what the power of the fire does. Like it is, and you know, I mean, we see all this stuff on TV, it happens in other places, but you know, that it happened right here, I think was a wake-up call for our whole community. It's, you know, it's completely unpredictable and it's completely devastating. So I don't know if that answered the question, but I can't remember what it was. Sorry.
Yes, no, I mean, I think that's a perfect answer. I think it very much sort of touches on how one's community really does influence sort of every aspect, and especially with the fire, how that can be sort of all torn away and sort of devastated.
Yeah, the crazy thing about these fires, we've lived, you know, different communities within our community have lived through them. I remember the Thomas fire in Ventura, it felt like, it felt absolutely apocalyptic. There was a curfew that was, you know, the smoke is inescapable. It absolutely blankets the entire region. And so, and at the same time, it's isolated, like it has its own, you know, beginning and crescendo and ending, you know, like it, and it's not everywhere, it's in this one area. And so that's the other thing that's really, I think, good to have this show for, is to have that, because people forget, like the next month it's like over already, you know. And so, and it only affected that one place. So to have that like lasting impact and that lasting, you know, sort of evidence of the fire, I think is hard to look at, but at the same time important to have out there as something that's always kind of a possibility in the future. You know, again, at least like once in a lifetime event. That's not, you know, okay, well, that doesn't mean that it's never going to happen again. It could, you know, and it has already multiple times for us. So yeah, it's one of those things, like we are so driven to, there's this whole phrase of like toxic optimism, you know, but like, you know, that's sort of the cultural push is toward optimism. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be, but it does kind of guide us to wipe out these kinds of memories. And I think that's another layer to this of like sure, these objects are beautiful and there's beauty in the destruction and everything, but we also have to remember just like that it could happen at any time and it could take everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So going back for a second on community and environmentalism and sort of the fire and all of this, Piper, I just wanted to ask how all of these ideas kind of culminated for you in your latest art installation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, the experience of the fire was very different from my family because I was 1,700 miles away in Chicago, and so I was watching the experience like through my phone. And it was a weird thing that this place that I had such like an intimate relationship to was just gone, and I knew it was gone, and I had seen that it was gone, but I actually had no like, I felt like I needed some sort of connection, and so I turned to just fire itself as like a way that I could begin to understand what happened. And I guess the first kind of like idea for this installation came from the idea of actually like honoring fire and like the realization that yes, I just watched my home burn, but another person in my class, they had just lost their house due to flooding in North Carolina. You know, like everybody, I just felt this sense of like everybody's losing their homes in one way or another. And these natural disasters, whatever they be, like floods or fires or hurricanes, they're just going to keep getting more and more common. And so I wanted to kind of create an experience where we could begin to talk about these things that are really hard to have a relationship with after you've, been traumatized by that thing. But I realized the reality of being from this place that I love so much is also fire. Like that is part of our landscape here. And so, I wanted to create a way that we could begin to like talk about the idea of also like ecological grief, like losing, like land changing, losing your home, but also kind of beginning to shift the way that we think about these things that are just going to become more and more common in our lives. And then also so I did 2 iterations of this piece, one in Chicago and then one at home. And the one I did at home became more kind of about like the idea of impermanence and letting go, and like growth also being part of that. What follows. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that the distance between you and your family during the fires sort of contributed to this idea of like, this is part of nature and it cannot be helped? Like, do you think the physical kind of separation from it enhanced that feeling for you?
Yeah, I mean, there was a total sense of like, I had absolutely no control, and I actually didn't experience it. It was just like, it was such a humbling moment to just like watch it happen from so far away and like know that it was a completely different world that I, from like the world that I knew. But yeah.
So now that we've sort of touched on both of your installations and exhibits, how would you say the process is in terms of building these exhibitions? Like, what is your creative process in going about it? And if you want to both sort of touch on it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it is totally collaborative. The exhibit isn't just the objects on a wall. Like it is the installation too, and the lighting and everything really is part of what brings a lot of dignity to these pieces. Like, they 1 minute they're on the floor and it doesn't look very good, and the next minute they're really kind of spotlit and graphic, and that gives them a whole nother life. And that wasn't me. That was several different people who are involved in that. So I would say with anything that you're doing, it's not really just like a solo experience. Yeah.
Yeah, going along off of like what my mom was talking about, she helped me a lot with like developing the second iteration. Like I'd say that was definitely a collaborative thing, and figuring out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it, and then also actually like, because it was both an installation and a performance, and so she also helped me a lot with like preparing for the performance and being able to do that 4 times. It was not easy, but in my installation I used natural dyes to make different elements, and used a lot of also natural materials, things from the original, like the house, that were saved after the fire. So yeah, I guess it kind of like started with those materials that I wanted to use, and then through the process I was able to do like sustainable practices or whatever, like things that also connect me back to that place. Like the natural dyeing, I used like flowers from Ventura County. So yeah, it's like finding all these ways to connect these different like experiences and places and materials.
I think the thing about like, there's I think Piper experienced this, and I did too, like with Piper's piece, it was interactive always from the beginning. Piper sort of conceived of it as something that they wanted to share with their friends, so their friends could kind of understand what that experience of sudden unexpected loss was. But on the other hand, like it is kind of an interior experience. It is an interior conversation. And so I think for me, going from that interior conversation to that moment of interface where people are coming to you and they're emotional and they're wanting to let you know that they're emotional because they want to sort of express their gratitude for the opportunity of having the show and having the opportunity to like have that experience the trauma in a different way, isn't really something that I was entirely prepared for, and I think that was what I wanted to help Piper with, is being able to be emotionally focused on the other people who were coming to have this experience, and to be available for that, and to be strong enough to be a guide for it, because it was. So anyway, there is that thing of like, you're not really a musician unless you have an audience, right? Mm-hmm. And for art too, it's about communicating, right? And so there's that, I think, it's people who are kind of like, as I said, like coming from a place of like, art is kind of about our family expression, to being in a place where this is all very public now. And actually, ironically, like also the like bringing the stuff from the house, from a personal place into a public place, so not just as like somebody presenting art and having that experience be public, but also, displaying these personal items and have that being public was, I think, in terms of engaging with the community, a very new experience for both of us.
Yeah. Moving on again, continuing to talk about how this sort of ecological mindset interacts with both of your sort of art exhibits and how you like express yourselves through art. How would both of you sort of describe how you see the relationship between art and the environment?
Well, kind of like I talked about before with textiles. Yeah, I mean, everything that we use and interact with comes from the earth, and so I think, yeah, art is like a really, for me, it's a really, like, the only way that I can really kind of try to communicate, like, what that means to me. I don't know. And kind of creating, like, connection between ourselves and the earth through materials. I think that that's what I'm able to do through art in a way that is interesting to me, hopefully to others. But yeah, it's a way of like storytelling and helping people to think about things differently too, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that, like, what is art? To me, art is the process of reframing, and you're sort of disconnecting yourself from, like, this red carpet to, like, a field of red, right? So it's I think in this context for this show, it's about that, like, this is a beam from a house, but it is actually a tree from a forest. Like, we're so disconnected from what things are, like, where things actually come from. Like, oh no, the apple comes from the store, it doesn't come from the tree. Like, that people actually sort of believe that, like, I think to expose the rawness of it all is what was particularly appealing to me about this, is just to get people to remember, like, we are all, just like part of the solar system. Like, that's what the fire is basically telling us, Yeah.
Well, thank you both for coming in, and I have one last question before we go. Do either of you have any other future goals or anything that you'd like to sort of achieve through your work?
You want to go first?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the experience of this show was really important and powerful for me because I was able to do it in community, and I think it made me want to, like, do that more, and, and do work with other people, collaborate. I have other goals and stuff that I want to do, like, outside of art, with, like, sustainability and living off the land, and I want to find a way to, like, bring all of these things really together within community as well, like learning from other people and working with other people. So yeah, it's very broad, but that's, like, what I'm hoping to get to. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I want to go deeper into the nonprofit space in art in a community sense, because without the Studio Channel Islands and without that the health and well-being of the nonprofit that was so well equipped to handle the show and so well staffed to recognize the importance of the show, it wouldn't have happened. So I think we need to, especially now, not take spaces like that for granted. I think spaces that offer, this is another example, just what you guys are doing here, like spaces that offer people an opportunity to tell their stories and to do that in a professional way with support is not something that we that doesn't just happen magically by itself. And these places more than ever need support and need real, serious, dedicated people to volunteer and to show up and to keep people engaged and help, emphasize that these, if you enjoy hearing these stories and if you enjoy being a part of this and you enjoy having this resource, you have to, show up and support.
Thank you. Well, thank both of you so much for coming in today and for everything that you do with both the community and through your work. I've had a very nice time talking, and thank you. I'm Cassius Rankin, and this has been ECTV.
I am a part of ECTV at CAPS Media. Instead of just telling you what we do here, I'm going to show you. As a Mexican, I love to share my culture, and one way I do this is through folklorico. This dance from Mexico del Norte is one of my favorites. Due to COVID, we've had to adjust. So I asked my group, Bell Arts Folklorico, to help make this video.
Y ahora, niños, después de la escuela, a bailar. Pero el tucanazo. ¡Órale! Con este ritmo se mueven todos. Este es el baile del tucanazo. Con este ritmo se mueven todos. Este es el baile del tucanazo. Muévanse todos, muévanse todos, muévanse todos y levanten los brazos. Con este ritmo se mueven todos. Nadie se puede quedar sentado. Con este ritmo se mueven todos. Nadie se puede quedar sentado. El tucanazo, a todo el mundo este baile ha contagiado. Y ahora todos dicen así: bailemos con el tuca, bailemos con el lazo, bailemos con el tuca, 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 tucanazo. Bailemos con el tuca, bailemos con el lazo, bailemos con el tuca, 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 tucanazo. Con este ritmo se mueven todos. Este es el baile del tucanazo. Con este ritmo se mueven todos. Este es el baile del tucanazo. Muévanse todos, muévanse todos, muévanse todos y levanten los brazos. Con este ritmo se mueven todos. Bailemos con el tuca, bailemos con el lazo, bailemos con el tuca, 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 tucanazo. Bailemos con el tuca, bailemos con el lazo, bailemos con el tuca, 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 tucanazo. Y nos vamos con un saludo para todos los tucancillos en todo el mundo. ¡Échenle ganas, plebes!
ECTV.